Hey guys, it's Colin here. I'm back doing a video a long time. In fact, I should just check the upload date for my last video. It was, I can't believe it was 6 months ago. But to be fair, not a lot's happened that's been, video worthy for me to talk about, certainly from a music point of view anyway. Until recently. I did guest appear in this thing called Tavern Rumors. You can find that on YouTube if you should so desire. I think it's still up there. Honestly, I have no idea. I haven't looked. I have no intention of looking. And if you guys want to go find it, go find it. I'm pretty sure it's still out there. I'm going to make this. This is primarily a music video, so I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about the Tavern Rumors thing. Because obviously circumstances have dictated that I'm not going to do another one. So yeah, you can go find that if you want to go find that. But this video is primarily a music video, so that's what I'm going to be discussing. And the subject of today's video is I have recently put out a solo album, my first actual full-length solo album. Something I never thought I would actually end up doing, because I would record tracks, maybe stick one out there, take one to one of my bands, see what we could do, that kind of thing. But I always kind of lost enthusiasm, experienced technical difficulties, like I broke a laptop and couldn't record anymore. There were always technical hitches, and recently at the turn of the year, in early 2016, I bought a new laptop, and I thought, well, I'm not really in the mood for it, but I'll jam out a few things. I'll stick my recording software, my drum software, everything back on, and I'll see where it goes. And it just when I started, it just took off. I couldn't stop. The thing, basically the album wrote itself. There were some tracks that presented snags. Obviously, the things that have been happening to me recently, a lot of it's quite emotional. There's quite a lot of it in there. I hesitated quite a bit whether to put it out or not, because at the end of the day, I decided I worked too long and hard on it. It's a very powerfully emotional album, especially for me. One bit of feedback I had on it from my father, who listened to the whole thing. One bit of feedback I had on it was that he found the lyrics quite heavy going, which was kind of the intention. There was a lot of stuff that I had inside of me emotionally that I felt like I had to get out, and that was really what started it. So I then thought, right, okay, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do it under a project this time. I'm going to actually have a project specifically designated for my solo stuff, because I've written so many songs over the years. I've been writing since I was 14 years old. I'm now nearly 27. That's a lot of writing. I've never actually, a lot of the stuff that I've put time into, I've never done anything with. So this project that I've started, I thought I'll finally start one project, like a one-man kind of thing, a solo thing. I may have guests at a future point. That is something that is on the cards, but more on that later. I thought, well, if I can collectively put it all into one project and release it as albums or EPs or maybe singles, even if I got the chance to do a music video, just to do something with, that's what. Almost, I suppose that's over 10, that's 13 years almost worth of writing material that I've done. Don't get me wrong, some of it's absolute shit. Let's face it, when you're 14 years old, you know absolutely nothing about the world. You think you know everything, but you know absolutely nothing about the world. So any lyrics you write when you're that age, let's just say they're not going to be great, leave it at that. Anyway, so I thought, right, the first thing I need a name for the project, and the name Synaesthesia, and the name came from, it was something that's always been underlying with me, and I never thought it was a thing. I just thought I was going crazy. like basically the idea is this thing where you can taste colors or you imagine certain things in a certain way. So like if someone recites once through the year, you can see them in a straight line, or as I see them in a sort of circuit, like an electrical circuit. Because that was what I studied as a student, was electronic engineering. So it's all to do with seeing things, and that idea fascinated me. So I did some research into it. And I found out a whole load of there are certainly could be the most random things set off different sensations in your brain. If you try to use a diary or a calendar or something like that, something as simple as something that people use on a daily basis, and it's not laid out or set out in the way your head imagines it to be, if it buggers with your mind and you can't really use it because it doesn't conform to what you kind of imagine. And that fascinated me. And I thought, that's the title I'm going to use. I'm going to use that because, as I said, I didn't know it was a thing. I just thought that was my crazy, screwed up way of making sense of the world. I didn't know it was an actual thing that, that other people see things that way. And, the next person might not see them the same way. In fact, almost certainly won't see them the same way as I do. But it's just this. It was a concept that fascinated me. Because it was a thing. I just thought it was my own crazy way of making sense of the world, or trying to. So that was where the name came from. And the album, I decided I wanted to do three basic things with the first album. I wanted to keep it real. I didn't want to hold anything back. I wanted to keep it real. I wanted to keep it simple, which is why I kept it self-titled. I didn't choose a title track, because all the tracks on it mean something to me in a different issue, a different way, kind of thing. At the same time, have common themes. So it would have been pretty difficult to choose a title track, I think. So I kept it self-titled. Just call it Synaesthesia by Synaesthesia. I kept it self-titled. Keep it as simple and as real as possible. And the third thing I wanted to do was just get something out there, just to say that I'd done something, to say that I'd done a full album, that I'd finished it, that I'd put it out there, and then that was that lot of songs as that album kind of thing. And then I can draw a line, and then if I want to do a follow-up, I can do a follow-up. If I want to take it in other directions, I can take it in other directions. But that particular project, that set of songs, is done, and I achieved all those three things, which I'm ecstatic about. And I wrote and recorded all of the album in just under a month. Because I say that I found all these emotions coming out when I got started, when I finally forced myself to get started. In fact, I think the first song I wrote was Synaesthesia, which I suppose by default is the title track, But that was the first riff I wrote, and that was the first riff. But the first set of lyrics I'd written down. I mean, I had previous ones that I later brought in to use, that sort of fitted with the idea. But the first set of lyrics I actually just wrote from scratch for the thing was Hearts Doing Time. Because there was this anger and frustration about a certain issue, which I'm not going to talk about because I don't need to talk about. I mean, it's all there in the lyrics. If you're any good at reading between the lines, you read the lyrics to Hearts Doing Time, you'll know exactly what it's about, or at least the kind of theme or thing that it's about. And it was just, I had to get that out of my system, and I had that, and then I wrote some music to put to that. I had the riff for Synaesthesia, I developed that, and then before I knew it, I had two tracks. And then I was sitting with the acoustic guitar one day, and I remembered this chord progression that I wrote from my band Easy Access, which was what turned into It'll Be Alright. And I had the chord progression, I had the lyrics, and I thought, I'm just gonna record this because I want to do an acoustic track. I love acoustic music. So I thought I want to do an acoustic track for whatever I'm going to do with this lot of songs. So I recorded that, put it down. It took about. I had three tracks in less than a week, really. And I started writing lyrics, and then I did started attempting various things to do with vocals, and as you know, vocals isn't my strongest asset at all. I mean, I do most of my talking through the guitar, and I've explained that I don't know how many times, but I do most of my talking through the guitar. So really, for me, that was my main focus. The drums, I'll come on to how I did it all in a minute because I'm going to talk a little bit about the equipment. But yeah, it just developed, and it kept developing and developing, and before I knew it, it was a month down the line, and I had a full set of songs that I could put together as an album. And I stuck that out on Bandcamp. You can find it on the Synaesthesia Facebook page. You can find it on my Facebook page, both of them, because I have two Facebook accounts. And the only reason for that is because I had to do a new one, but I had to keep the old one as well because of all my photographs and my admins for pages and things like that. And it was just, until I sorted it all out, it's just easier to keep the two up and running. So I still use both, albeit primarily for different things. So there's that. That's the reason behind that. Now, the equipment that I used to record the album, it was very, very, again, in key with keeping it simple. I used a small amplifier, THR5, Yamaha. Fantastic, best pieces of kit I've ever received. I got it as a Christmas present a few years ago. I got recording software, Cubase, with it. So I used Cubase, that's not what I used to record. I used this small amp to put all my guitars, bass, and through, even acoustic guitars, and I used that as the audio interface from my computer, directly into my computer via USB, and records directly into Cubase. That's it. That's my recording setup for guitars, for bass, and vocals. Drums, I use a software called Rhythm. I think I paid about $10 for the license for it. It's not brilliant, but for what I need, because I'm not a drummer, I don't play drums, so it's the basic of the basic. And for me, again, keep it simple. That's all I need. It does what I need it to do, so I don't really need to spend any more than that. It's good enough for what I need to do. It's not as if I've got any immediate plans to take this project live to a gig scenario. And if I take it to a gig scenario, then I wouldn't do it just myself. I would bring together a live band to do it, because I just love being a part of a live band. That would be my preferred way. Even though it's my project, my material and everything, I'd still bring a live band, because that's, in my opinion, how music was designed to be played and should be played, is live. So I would, if I was to take it live, which I'm not saying I will or won't, but if I was to, then I would go down the route of getting a live band. So I don't need an expensive drum machine, guaranteed not to skip if I take it to. I would get a drummer, a human being to do that. Now I'm going to go on very quickly and do a couple of shout outs, because I did all the writing myself, the recording myself, mixing and mastering all myself. I wrote all the music, the lyrics, arranged all the songs. There were a few people I need to give an honourable mention to, because they did help me out. First goes to my very good friend from the Paul Kossoff page on Facebook, Mr. Al Sim, who did me a very good job in Photoshop. It was him that the logo, the writing for the word synesthesia on the cover photo that I had, with the Rubik's Cube and everything. It was him that put that together for me. So a huge thank you to him for doing that. And he gave me advice on album covers in the future, which I'll definitely take on board, because he's a talented guy. You should check his work out on YouTube. He does a lot of mashups and slideshow pictures with music tracks, and I mean it's some fantastic stuff, and you get to listen to a fantastic song and look at photographs of very inspirational people in the music world. So yeah, definitely check out Al Sim's work on YouTube, on Facebook, and so on. Secondly, I'm going to mention Brendan Crowe, a very good friend of mine, has been for a long time. And the reason I'm going to mention him is because he was my second opinion for just about every single track. In fact, I think it was every single track. Brendan heard every single track that was released as it was recorded. So Brendan actually saw the album develop, and he gave me feedback, he gave me advice. Okay, I didn't take all of it, I took some of it. I listened to what he had to say, and I'm very grateful that Brendan took the time to to do that, and he would share like the tracks. And when the album came out, he shared the album. When I put up the advert, I was going to do this video, the Q&A thing, which I'll come on to in a bit. He shared that. You know, he's been fantastically helpful in helping me get stuff out there. And he's a great guy, and you know, he's great encouragement to me, and he's been very helpful and supportive since I came back at the beginning of the year. And for many years, he's just been fantastic. So I feel necessary to give an honourable mention to Brendan. Thank you for all your help, support, and I promise I'll send you more recordings in the future. Last but not least, I'm going to mention another good friend of mine, Michael Wernick, because if it was him, because he's a solo project essentially called Good Boy, which you can find on Facebook as well. You should check out. It's fantastic stuff, and you get to see the music videos of, you know, he tours around Europe, he hitchhikes around Europe, and he's seen some fantastic places, beautiful scenery, you know, met amazing people, and I strongly recommend you give a listen to his stuff, because it's what inspired me, gave me the confidence to do the solo project myself, because my main worry, I don't lack in confidence with the music. I mean, I believe I'm good at what I do, which is, I'm a good guitarist, I believe that. I'm good at what I do. But I don't really have much confidence in my voice, and vocals is a big part of music. There's no getting away from that. I mean, it's, you know, about, I would say 50 or 60% of a band is having a good singer. I mean, I honestly admit that, because, you know, it makes a world of difference. If you get someone who can sing, then it just takes things to a whole new level. And that was the main kind of issue that I was with, was vocals, and he gave me the confidence. I sent him a couple of tracks. He liked some of what he heard, and that gave me a lot of confidence. So thank you, Michael, and all the best for your future travels. Hopefully I'll be able to join you at some point along the way for more jams in general. Good times. Right, okay. Well, I've prattled on enough about the album being out. As I say, you can get it on Bandcamp. You can find the link on Facebook. If you can't find it and you want it, just ask me. It's up as a name your price download. You can have it for free. I did it because I wanted to do it. I didn't do it to make money. If I make a couple of quid off it, happy days. You know, I'm not gonna lie. It's nice, but you know, I didn't do it to make any money off of it. So you know, that's why it's up as a name your price download. That's when get it for free. Now, I'm going to move on because I'm already nearly at 20 minutes for this video, and this was meant to be a short video, but that's not going to happen. And I'm going to go on to the Q&A. I put up an advert saying I was going to do a question and answer thing. If anyone wants to ask me any questions about the album, themes, lyrics, music, or just talk about anything, then they should shoot me a message. And I got some response. I got a few questions. Many, but I got a few. I mean, it's not been out there for that long, so. But I'm going to take some time now to answer those. I'm not going to name anyone who asked questions, because I think that's the best way to go forward with this, because the first question I'm going to answer is it's going to be a very blunt and may seem brutal answer. So I'm not going to name anyone, because this isn't anyone's fault. No one's done anything wrong. No one's offended me, I promise. I asked you to ask me questions. All you did was ask me questions. No one's done anything wrong. This is just a particularly sensitive issue for me right now, and I need to clear it up. So I'm going to get this one first, because a few of you got in touch regarding the same song, which was the piece I wrote called Candle in the Night. Now, Candle in the Night, I was asked if I plan to record it in the future, if I plan to maybe perform it live in the future, if I plan to, why didn't it make it on the final album? Was I unhappy with it? Because no, it wasn't because I was unhappy with it, no. So basically, I've got to be honest with you guys and say the reason it hasn't appeared in the album is because I didn't want it to. And the answer to your question is no, I have no plans to live or record it in the future. I mean, I've got to be up front. I don't like talking about Candle in the Night. But you know, I asked you to ask me questions. You asked me questions. I said I would talk about anything, and I've got to be off my word. So, if you want me to talk about Candle in the Night, I suppose I fucking have to. But yeah, as I say, I'm not going to name anyone here. No one's done anything. No one's offended me. This is just something that I have to get out there so that everyone knows the deal and what the deal is with that particular song. So as I say, I've no plans or intentions to record, perform, or put out Candle in the Night in the future. In fact, I'll never play it again because, and it's not because of spite. It's not of ill feeling or bitterness towards anyone. Put simply, that I won't do Candle in the Night ever again is because, for me personally, put simply, it's too damn painful. Okay, physically and emotionally, I'm not able to get through the song from start to finish. And because it's too hard with the lyrics, the memories associated with the lyrics, the situation associated with how I wrote the music, everything about it is just, the emotions are too raw, they're too strong, and I just can't do that song anymore. Take a scenario, right? Imagine something like, I don't know, something I've been doing a lot of looking into. Imagine going to, for example, Taya Tribune, right, and saying, Nightwish came up to her and said, right, we want to work on vocals, but we only want you to sing songs that we record with and Floor. You know, imagine what she would say to that. Imagine how she would feel about that. Because a lot of those songs were written bitterly about her. So she has no interest in them, and they're very personal to various people for various reasons, which, you know, is very public. You can whack this into Google and find out the whole story. But it's a similar deal here. I mean, I'm not going to perform, you know, or record a piece of music that causes me pain or discomfort, no matter how good the piece of music is, or no matter, you know, the potential that it may have. You know, I'm not in music to put myself in pain. I'm in music to inspire myself and get rid of pain. So, yeah, it doesn't make sense that I would perform a song that makes me feel upset or uncomfortable or anything like that. So, no, I'm afraid, I'm really sorry, but I'm not going to do Candle in the Night ever again. I mean, I did actually do a video on the breakdown of it, how I wrote it. So if you want to know all about it, go find that video. I mean, I'll never watch it again, but it's still up there. I haven't taken it down. So that's where to go if you want to find out more about that song. But unfortunately, I won't be playing it again, which it does make me very sad, because I was very attached to that song. I used to play it a lot. But I just can't do it anymore. So sorry, guys. That's just to clear the air about that. Okay, onto more. I actually don't feel offended because you'll know, or upset because you'll know who you are when I see this. But I actually had to laugh when I got this next question, because to be honest, you know, that was the last thing I expected, particularly with regards to this particular song. The question I was asked if my song "The Prisoner," which the opening track of the album after the prologue, I was asked if it was about the Oscar Pistorius track. Right? I was not expecting to, you know, but you know, being direct with me is perfectly fine. I mean, it's a perfectly legit question. If you want to know that, then I'll answer that quite happily. And in a way, I'm actually kind of glad it came up because I guess it's a chance for me to explain the actual inspiration behind my opening track and prevent anyone from getting the wrong idea, because it is a track that certain people could get the wrong idea about. So actually, you asking me this question gives me a chance to clear that up, and for that I thank you. It's the only track, if you like, the Prisoner's got one out, because it is a little bit faster and heavier than the rest of them. And also, it's the only track on the album I didn't write completely from personal experience and personal ideas. I only partially. I started off thinking, how would I start the album off? How would I set the tone for the rest of it? And put the album in a position where from the opening track to the finishing track that it could develop. So I did the prologue, which is a little bit of a story. There's a haunting kind of rain and lightning and a haunting chord progression and stuff in there. And it's like a narrative, it's a written story that starts off. And then The Prisoner's the opening track. And it opens, it's quite a heavy track. It's a kind of Iron Maiden-y type guitars track. So, and I came back to this idea that a counsellor that I went to once explained to me the idea of mentally, if you've got any kind of mental health condition, which I do, and those of you who've watched my previous videos will know that. I mean, if you want to ask me about that, then ask me about that. But as I say, this video is primarily about music, so I'm going to talk about music. But this concept that this counsellor explained to me was that, you know, having a mental health condition, you feel kind of like a prisoner. You feel isolated, you feel boxed in, you feel like you're in a metaphorical cell, essentially. Okay? And I took that idea, that concept, and I combined it through the lyrics with the concept of reality of an actual prisoner, like in real life, you know, someone that's actually locked up, kind of thing. And I put the two, the mental aspect and the actual reality aspect, which is nothing to do with me, and I combined that with the mental aspect of it, which is something to do with me. And the idea that, you know, you can be physically set free, right? So imagine the concept of being physically set free. You know, the door gets opened and you walk through it. You're physically free. But your mind goes through that door with you. So if your mind's not free, you're still taking it with you. So you're still trapped. That was the concept. That was the idea that I was trying to put down in that opening song. And if you read the lyrics that I wrote for The Prisoner, it suggests that they've been imprisoned wrongfully. They're innocent. They've not done what they're supposed to have done. And that part of it, this is going to come as a shock, but my inspiration for that was the Luke Mitchell trial. So the lyrics are actually about Luke Mitchell. That's about as blunt as I can explain it. It's the Julie Jones murder trial. He supposedly killed his girlfriend in some satanic ritual in a forest somewhere. Again, the case was very famous throughout the early 2000s. I followed it from the beginning. I've always believed that the guy is innocent because there was no evidence to prove that he did it. And the only evidence that they had was circumstantial. You know, so it was because the guy was into heavy rock music, something that I identify with. You know, people have certain ideas of heavy rock music and certain cliches associated with heavy rock music. You know, do we sit round in circles and light candles and chant Welsh reading out a black Bible with an inverted cross and, you know, cutting our wrists into milk and drinking it and slaughtering goats? No, we fucking don't. We don't do that at all. Like, we just don't do that. You know, that's the way certain people perceive us, but that's not what we do. So, and because of that, I became sort of attached to this trial. I became very interested in Luke Mitchell as a person because of that. And so, yeah, the lyrics are about, well, the physical aspect of the lyrics are there. They're about Luke Mitchell. So that is essentially what The Prisoner's about. It's about two different aspects of the same thing, and it's about Luke Mitchell. Okay, so on to the next question. Oh God, there's an A, B, and C, and even D to this question. My, someone was feeling elaborate. Okay, and the question is, what was the toughest and easiest track to record A musically, B lyrically, and C emotionally? And finally, which track on the album am I most connected to? Well, actually, this is an interesting one mainly because in my own, I'd been asked this before I did the album and asked it again after I did the album. My answers would be totally different because the tracks I was expecting to be difficult weren't. Some of the tracks I was expecting to get through no problem, and they were difficult. They were challenging on at least one of those levels. So I'll go through that chronologically. I'll start with the hardest track. The hardest track to do musically, um, I would say the hardest track to do musically was probably the last one, In My Open Arms. Just because there are so many bits to it, and there's like a tempo change in it, and there are a lot of layers to it. It's built up. It starts with an acoustic guitar, and then it brings in a clean electric guitar, and then it brings in a clean lead melody at the start, and then that fades, and then it becomes chords, and it's basic chords and bar chords, and then it builds and builds and builds, and then it has a heavy end and a heavy solo, and then a heavy lyric at the end. There's so many bits to it musically that to get the tempo changes and stuff like that. To record that, because I don't play drums, that's my key kind of flaw with that, with the musical side of things, is if I do a song like that, it is difficult. So that was difficult. That was probably the most challenging musically. That did take me a few takes to do that, and by that time I started experimenting with double tracking and all sorts of things. So I had like so many. Some of the songs in the album have like 15 to 20 like single tracks with different layers, kind of thing. But yeah, that's something I learned. And again, coming back to my friend Michael, that was one of his suggestions, was to double track. And Brendan suggested, well, double track your vocals sometimes, like, because it brings them out more. But I at the start, sort of self-consciously, because I'm not really confident with my vocals, I keep them back in the mix a bit. So that's something I've learned from the process. The hardest song for me to get through for me to write lyrically, first of all, that is actually quite a difficult one, because, as I say, a lot of it just came to me like that. So I couldn't honestly tell you. I would probably say the prologue, actually, lyrically the prologue, because I wanted to set the right tone. At the start, I wanted to put down, this is where the album's beginning, and give it as much opportunity to develop as I possibly can, throughout the 11 tracks that are on. So lyrically, to write, probably the prologue. There were a couple of tracks on the album that were hard lyrically because of what was going on in my head, but they weren't hard to get down because it was coming out. It kept coming out. Like, all the emotion was coming out, so it wasn't really hard from that point of view. Finally, the hardest track emotionally to record. This one was a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting this to be this way. I was expecting the hardest track to be early on in the album, because I just kind of started, and the emotions were very raw at the start. So I was expecting it to be hard emotionally then, but it didn't actually get really hard emotionally until the end of the album. The hardest track for me to record emotions-wise was actually the second last track. That was the hardest track for me to get through emotionally, and I did a few takes of the vocal for that because I was choking up a little bit. I think it was kind of, I'm not really sure why. I think it was more to do with what it was about, and that sort of realization. If you read the lyrics, it's quite heavy going lyrically, from the point of view that it's basically a song about regret. That's what it is, and I think it just finally brought it, home to me, and made me come to terms with the fact that the thing I have through all the emotion, sadness, at times happiness of the album, the ultimate emotion that was coming through the whole album was regret, and I think that really took quite a toll on me. So that track was probably the hardest to do emotionally. And even now, when I play it, because it's a slow thing to start, and then it's got quite an emotionally heavy solo at the end as well. It was a track that was written in two halves. I think even when I listen back to that, I can, if I start to feel all that again. That's it's really an emotional track that for me. Um, so those are the hardest ones. On to the easiest ones. The easiest track musically to do and lyrically to do, they're probably the sort of towards the end, the two fast tracks, Lay Down and Sim. They were back to basics, you know, hard hitting rock and roll, simple riffs, good solos, solid solos, guitar wise anyway, simple bass lines, down and dirty, sexual innuendo lyrics, the basis of rock and roll, which comes so naturally to whatever mood I'm in, whatever I'm feeling. It comes so natural to me that because it's the stuff I grew up on that just, they just come out. Lay Down, I wrote for a band that was in called Retroless. Um, it was literally, I sat down with a piece of paper. Two of the guys in the band went across the road to Sainsbury's to get more wine. They came back, I had the whole thing written. It was as quick as that. Sin for Nothing, I wrote on the walk back from a pub once in my head and still remember it the next day. So musically, lyrically, and there's not much emotional attachment to those because it's just another rock and roll, you know, let's go for it experience kind of thing. So the easiest ones, yeah, those ones. Now, finally, which track do I feel most connected to? It's a really bloody difficult question because I feel connected to them all in some way, shape, or form. Um, I would probably have to say the track I feel most connected to is Hearts Doing Time for the simple reason, not because of what it's about, but for the simple reason it was the catalyst, it was the Kickstarter, it was what got me back writing and making music and recording again. And I think for that reason and that reason only, that's because although The Prisoner and the Prologue were before that, they were written after it. They were just put before it in the final ordering kind of thing. The first two tracks, the first three tracks recorded were Hearts Doing Time, Synaesthesia, and It'll Be Alright. So those three, I would say, but particularly Hearts Doing Time, because that was the catalyst, are the ones that I feel most connected. Okay, last question. General themes or concepts in the album, or is each track about an individual thing? Say, for this instance, a little from column A and a little from column B. Um, there is a general that concept of development, but there's the prologue, and then which is slow and haunting, and the rain, and it's kind of quite melancholy mood-wise. And there's the Prisoner, which is really fast and heavy and hard-hitting, and then it goes into some kind of harder rock stuff, and then lyrically some of it's quite angry, frustration to understand things and to make sense of the world and of what's happened, what hasn't happened, what should have happened. And then there's the kind of love elements, there's the kind of rock and roll elements, which is always part of it. And then finally, there's the kind of remorse, regret, and this constant need to sort of try to move on, but it's difficult. So it develops that way. But I wouldn't say it's conceptually. I would say general themes. Yeah, there certainly are general themes, but it's not conceptually. The album itself doesn't tell a story beginning necessarily, even although there are some recurring themes, some common themes throughout the album. So again, I would have to say no. Each track is not necessarily about an individual thing. Maybe an individual aspect of a greater thing, but not an individual thing. And it's not one of those albums that that this track is about falling in love with this person, and then this track is about riding my motorcycle up the M8 with a bottle of Jack Daniels, MP3 player, and and then this track is about you know, I went and sat up a hill in the north of Scotland and I wrote about the scenery. It's not like that at all. So no, each track is not about an individual thing. An individual aspect of a bigger picture, yes, but not about an individual thing. So that's me done answering questions. If anyone wants to ask anything further, the door's still always open. You can always ask me questions. Anything you like, just comment on the video. Facebook me, Facebook Synaesthesia. Email me, Skype me, carrier pigeon me. You know the drill. The usual. You'll find some way to get in touch with me. I'll talk very briefly before about future plans that I have musically. What I'm going to look to do now. I mentioned at the start of the video how I introduced the project of Synaesthesia to try and do something with things that I've done over the years, and there were a good few songs that were in my head, and I played a lot for long periods of my life that I didn't actually do anything with, and I've decided to do maybe 2 different albums reflecting different time periods of my past life. There was a lot of songs I wrote when I was young and at school, and I've decided to do. I think the album will be called Attics and Archives. There'll be the original guitar parts, there'll be the original solos, original dreadful cheesy lyrics, keep it as it was then. And it's kind of a chance to do something with that period in my life and sort of put that to bed, say, right, that's that done, that's finally done, just, push that to one side. And, I think it might it'll stop, periods of time in my life. So I write about periods of time in my life, overlapping, intertwining, and influencing when really I should be moving on with things, moving on with my life, which, sometimes, that's easier said than done. I'm also going to do a similar album called, and I think the album's going to be called 174 Highland Road, because I wrote a lot around the time when there was a flat. We used to, very good nights there, many happy nights, parties, all the rest of it there, and I wrote a lot, and there was a lot that happened around about that period when all that was going on in my life. So again, it's a similar deal. It's a chance to pull all that together and put that into like a category and put that to one side. Of course, you never forget the good times, because if you forgot the good times, you'd throw yourself off a cliff now. Everybody's got to remember the good times, no matter how bad your life gets. Even if you don't like thinking about the good times because they bring back bad memories, you still have to remember them, and try and remember them for what they were. Which again is easier said than done. In fact, it's very, very difficult. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. So that's basically everything. As I say, if you want to get a hold of the album, you want to get a hold of me, by all means, fire away, message me, comment me, do your do. I think that was a line of one of the songs actually. But yeah, so I finally got this video done. Sorry it's taken so long. It's just been hard getting back to normal. You're trying to get to grips with what's been happening and so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm glad it's finally done. Thank you to anyone that watches this. Please like, subscribe, do all your usual stuff. And I don't know what my next video will be, because I don't know. Well, I've got a good idea, as I just explained, what my next musical projects might be, but I don't know what my next video will be. So I don't know when I'll be checking back in. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys around. Ta-da!